Welcome to the Trackstar Podcast, a conversation about music and culture centered around a 10-song playlist I've specifically created for our guests. This week, pop punk and 3 iconic bands, starting with Simple Plan.
Literally first show we have ever played, we're playing that song.
One of the greatest songs for me of all time.
It's a whole new sound, you know? They changed everything.
Later, we're going to talk to Good Charlotte.
One of the first bands to perfect pop punk. Legendary, man. We love those guys.
And lastly, All Time Low.
They were the first massive band to take us on tour.
We wouldn't have the pop punk that we have today without those bands. A prime example of what we wanted to set ourselves to do, you know?
I'm your host, Jack Coyne, and this is a history of pop punk in 10 songs. Roll the intro.
Testing 1, 2, 3.
Check.
You ready?
I'm ready.
Trackstar, let's go.
I wish the world could be in these headphones right now. I'm on the show. Have fun.
We're off to a very hot start here. Simple Plan formed in Montreal in 1999, and they broke out in 2002 with their debut album, No Pads, No Helmets, Just Balls. Here are Chuck and Pierre from Simple Plan. Before we start with the music, you guys just introduce yourselves here.
That's one over here?
Yeah.
All right. Hey, what's up? I'm Pierre.
And I'm Chuck from the band Simple Plan.
Let's go.
What I wanted to do was come up with some songs that kind of define pop punk.
Okay.
And
All
a
right.
little bit
Relevant
of
songs to
emo.
Simple Plan.
Relevant songs of Simple Plan.
Cool.
And I want to kind of tell the history a little bit because I
Lovely.
think it's interesting. It's a really fascinating part of music history and culture. We recently did this podcast about punk rock and how starting in the 70s, how that music sort of expanded and evolved into alternative rock more broadly and has reached so many people across so many different types of music and genres. Now it's in hip hop, it's all over the place.
Yeah.
So that's what some of this plays where we're going to start to go. But I also want to go back in time and think of some of the stuff that maybe inspired you guys.
Okay. Sounds
amazing.
great. I love it already.
For the very first song on this playlist, we're going to go all the way back to 1978 and a song that I kind of think of as proto-pop punk. Fun fact, as we were researching this episode, we found the first ever use of the term pop punk in a 1977 New York Times article about Tom Petty and the Heartbreakers. I have a band that I want to play for you guys that I think is the original pop punk band.
Okay.
You might disagree.
The original pop punk.
I think this might be the original one,
Okay.
according to me.
Oh, yeah. So great. The Ramones. I want to be sedated.
Late 70s?
78.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, 78. Wow.
Right,
That was
the
the
year
year
before
before
we
we
were
were
born.
born. That's
Right?
crazy.
Yeah.
These are the true creators of what 20 years later we started doing.
Yeah.
But it's simplicity, but with some attitude and some chuggy guitars. But if you break it down, it's they're very lullaby, very simple songs with a great meaning and just catchiness. You know what I mean?
Great melody.
Yeah.
And when you think about it, they were inspired by all that Phil Spector kind of wall of sound. That's what they were trying to do, but just with distortion and everything. And and you can see the template, right? The verse, chorus, the smaller verse, and then the exploding choruses. Everything that pop punk did comes from there,
Yep.
and that, and the Descendants were also a super, influential band that sort of, I think, was probably inspired by Ramones as well. So there's a through line between all of these bands.
I was going to play Descendants.
Nice.
You mentioned them.
Oh, nice.
Tell me about listening to, did you guys listen to the Descendants?
Yeah, I really I know it's not one of the most, for all the true Descendant fans, it's not the favorite record, but I really like the record Everything Sucks.
Yeah.
It's such a great one to me. It was a little more polished compared to the other previous ones. But I think we heard it when we first went to West Beach Recorders.
Yeah.
Yeah, we were 17 years old and we were out in California for the first time. And that one to me, and it will always be one of my favorite records by the Descendants. The last song on the record called Thank You. I think it's the last one. It's called Thank You. One of the greatest songs for me of all time.
Next up, we're going to talk to Alex and Jack from All Time Low. They formed the band in 2003 in Maryland. They're a little bit at the later end of the pop punk guests that we're going to speak to on this episode. But they had huge amounts of success. You probably know their song, Dear Maria, Count Me In. These guys also sold a lot of records. And to this day, that song is doing huge numbers streaming on Spotify. I love these guys. Introduce yourselves.
Hey, what's up? We are one half of All Time Low, and we are here with headphones on, ready to guess what songs are playing in our ears.
Let's go, baby.
For song number 2, I want to talk about another proto-pop punk song, this time an English band and a song from 1980. You probably recognize this one.
The Clash.
Yes. The Clash, in some ways, are like an early proto-pop punk band, I think.
I think so.
Because
Especially-
they had a punk ethos that came from that background, but they also were like, let's make like really hooky,
I think there's such an interesting intersection between like the Brit punk and the American punk, like that formed in the 70s and 80s that then became what we know of the 90s.
Yeah.
And I think the Clash was so pivotal in forming that.
Next up, we're going to talk to two of the most famous figures in pop punk, brothers Joel and Benji Madden of the band Good Charlotte. Good Charlotte broke out in 2002 with their album The Young and the Hopeless, and they had hit songs like Lifestyles of the Rich and the Famous and The Anthem. One note, when we had these guys on the show, we did something a little bit different. We did a versus, a head-to-head competition where I was playing the same song for them at the same time to see who could guess it first. And being twins who maybe are potentially a little bit telepathic, they kept saying the names of the bands at the exact same time, which was hilarious. Without further ado, Good Charlotte. All right, before we start the music, just introduce yourselves.
Hey, I'm Joel Madden from the band Good Charlotte. I'm Benji Madden, also from the band Good Charlotte.
For song number 3, the playlist is going to start to shift finally away from the proto-punk era into, I think, the songs that really directly influenced the bands that came to define the pop-punk movement of the early 2000s. This is a song from 1991. It's a skate punk song from a Southern California band. Check this out.
I know this. NOFX.
Again.
Of course.
Again at the same time.
At first, I thought it was one. I thought it was a My Chem, the first opening
From
drum
the first
thing.
record?
Yeah.
No, I knew it
So
wasn't that.
NOFX is kind of OG.
OG. I really give NOFX like credit. It's in the punk genre,
Yeah.
but people that were getting into punk but coming from other places, because we weren't in like the city or in a scene.
Yeah.
So we were discovering music from the radio first, and
From
then
alternative
digging.
press
And alternative press
in the 90s.
and,
we were
and
just trying
the
to get alternative
radio.
press.
When you lived down in the middle of nowhere, you'd get alternative press. You'd look through and you'd see Rancid, NOFX.
I think NOFX was like one of the first bands to perfect pop punk, and also the humor and the like, you know what I mean? Because it was pretty serious before. Like the Misfits weren't funny,
Yeah.
and like Minor Threat wasn't funny, and like
But NOFX was funny as
NOFX
shit.
was funny.
Yeah.
You know,
And Fat Mike he's funny. He's crazy.
he's also like a really good singer.
yeah, he is.
Before we get back to the show, a quick message from our sponsor, Rivian. This week, I want to talk about one of the most important features of the Rivian, the charging experience. I got to admit, when I first got an electric car, I was intimidated by the idea of charging versus filling it up at the gas station because that's what I was used to doing my whole life. And what was life going to be like without that experience? Well, after one day of owning this car, all my fears went away. Charging is not only easy, it's a much better experience than going to the gas station. Let me tell you why. Charging your car is extremely similar to charging your phone at night. When you get home, you plug it in, it charges while you sleep, and in the morning, you're ready to go. It's like magic. You almost never think about it. And when you're on the road, you don't need to go to the gas station because you're running low on gas. You got a full tank, or I should say a full battery for the entire day. It's amazing. Let's say you're going somewhere far outside of your normal routine. Rivian makes it extremely easy to charge on the road. Just plug in your destination, and the navigation system will suggest places along the way for you to pull in and charge where it's super easy. And when you get there, you plug in, spend 20, 30 minutes. You can watch YouTube videos on the entertainment system if you want to. You could watch the Trackstar podcast, or you can go in, get a snack, get some lunch. Rivian makes charging extremely easy and comfortable. If you're curious, I encourage you to demo drive a Rivian today and try it for yourself. I promise you're going to love it. Okay, back to the show. We're going to go back to Simple Plan for the next two songs. For me, these two songs are really the very beginning of what became the definitive pop punk sound. Two songs from 1994, and 2 bands from California.
Do you have the time?
I mean, classic. Listen to this. Green Day.
There we go.
Green Day. yes.
Basket case.
Actually, when we were making the documentary, I found an old tape of us in that basement.
Probably Jean Sebastian's basement,
Yeah,
probably?
that's literally first show we have ever played. We're playing that song.
And that was one of the only covers we ever did. We did that one, and we did, strangely enough, Nirvana Rape Me. I'm not really sure why that connected. We played that one, and then from there on, we just went to originals.
Those 2 bands are actually connected, Nirvana and Green Day, not
Really?
just sonically.
Same era, right?
But they one of the reasons that Green Day was signed to begin with was the explosion post Nirvana, and all the major labels wanted to get a piece of what was
Right.
happening.
Right.
Because
Interesting.
Nirvana basically burst on the scene, and there wasn't really much that was like it, and they became
I mean, they
the
changed
biggest
everything.
band in the world,
Yeah.
right?
It was 80s band. It was hair metal, and then like all of a sudden,
Grunge.
they didn't have a career anymore. These bands. It was a whole new sound. You know, they changed everything.
So the labels were seeking like West Coast bands that had some of that same DNA, and Green Day like fit the bill. And then Green Day has gone on to become the #1 best-selling punk band of all time.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah, they're
Dookie.
massive.
So Dookie, when you guys first heard that, obviously you covered it. Tell me about your relationship to listening to that, and then at the same time that you guys were getting started.
It was a life-changing album. Dookie for me was massive. I remember where I was when I listened to it a lot. It was over a summer, and I was working at a buddy of mine's. His uncle had an apartment, and he wanted us to paint the wall. So we were there for like 3 weeks, and the record that I got was Green Day, and it was just on repeat the entire time. And I still vividly remember being there. And I just love the band, love the record all the way through. So good.
And the
You can
music.
smell paint when you're listening.
Yeah, and the music videos, the visuals.
I heard you crying loud. All the way across town. You've been searching for that someone, and it's me out of the crowd.
Everything was so interesting, and it opened up a whole scene of bands that we were so curious about, and it made us want to. I think it shaped our identity and made us want to be in that kind of band, and made us like, okay, now we know what we want to do.
And then years later, we opened up for them on the Pop Disaster Tour with Blink-182, Green Day, and then again in Australia. And actually, funny enough, I'm pretty close friends with Mike Dirnt from Green Day because our wives are childhood friends, and like we live in the same small town. It's pretty crazy.
We're off to a good start here.
Yeah.
I like these.
Hell yeah.
These choices.
Yeah.
You're killing it.
Okay, let's go for another one.
Okay. I mean, this is gonna be very hard for you to figure out who it is. Yeah, it's a tough one. I know it, but
Oh yeah, you're picking all the
this is
classics.
so relevant.
I love
You-
it.
You're really nailing it. That's the OffSpring, Self-Esteem. An incredible. It's Self-Esteem, right? Yeah.
Yes, it
I'm
is.
just a sucker with no self-esteem.
I mean, you should know we've been on tour for the last 3 years.
I
with them.
know exactly. But we've literally been on tour with them for the last 3 years. But so the Offspring was like a life-changing discovery for me. I was, in the early 90s, I was really into what was cool. My older brothers listened to Pearl Jam, Soundgarden, all that kind of stuff.
Uh-huh.
And then I discovered the Offspring through snowboarding movies. There was I think a movie called The Anthem that back then you had a VHS tape. You couldn't watch them all on YouTube. It was like you had one and you watched it over and over again. So so that record, it was Ignition at the time, came out in I think 92 or 93 or
In 94.
94.
At the same time as Green
Yeah,
Day.
94.
Yeah, exactly.
And Bad Religion. And
Yep.
I mean, that was a seminal year for punk rock.
So that was something that really, for me, it just opened up a new style that I was like, oh, I don't want to do grunge. I want to do whatever this is.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And and years later, we're on tour together. We're buddies. I got their cell numbers. Our wives text each other. Like it's so bizarre, and it feels surreal that that if I could tell my 13-year-old, 14-year-old self at the time, like, hey, man, you idolize these guys, and at some point you'll be playing shows with them all over the world, and you'll be friends with them.
Bro,
It's
imagine
pretty
you can
incredible.
tell you're like 14 years old self that you're going to be flown by Dexter on his own plane.
I flew on his
He's
plane.
A pilot.
He's a
I
pilot.
mean,
He's got a few planes, but sometimes when he tours, he flies himself with his family. And Jeff and I were we got to ride in his
That's
plane
pretty
with him a
sick.
couple of summers ago.
When you guys were growing up in Montreal, a lot of these bands that you looked up to were in Southern California.
Yeah.
Or that a lot of that music scene, like the roots are in Southern California, and now you guys live there. Was Did you have this like as teenagers, like desire, like we got to get out of Canada, like we got to go down, like that's the place to be?
For sure.
Just the music scene there. It's like, and the punk clubs, or was it a lot of that same stuff was already happening?
You know, it's so interesting that you mentioned that because there was this deep connection between California and Montreal. For whatever reason, Montreal was the mecca of like old new school punk rock, like at the time, like Fat Record, Epitaph bands. They were massive in Montreal. They would play like everywhere else. They'd play like 300-400 people, and then they would come to Montreal and they would play 2,000-3,000 people. It was like 10 times the size. They were rock stars there, and they would come all the time. So growing up in Montreal, we had. And then, like, it was so many choices. You could see 2-3 shows a week of this kind of music. So it was the perfect place, the perfect time. And we got to see all these life-changing shows like NOFX, you know, playing with Face to Face and 10-Foot Pole and Lagwagon was coming. And, you know, all these Good Riddance, all these great bands that were so important to us. And Bad Religion and Offspring, they were all coming to Montreal because they were doing so much better.
They were crushing in Montreal.
But California still had this lure, this incredible attraction because every record was recorded there. Like, and I remember with our first band, we went and we mixed our first record at West Beach Recorders on Sunset because
that's where all the records that we liked were getting mixed.
On the album credit, it said mix at the West Beach Recorders, and it was like, oh, if we go there, we're gonna get that aura, we're gonna get that shine, we're gonna get that sound. And we were 16 years old. We packed up with we had a guy that was like part of our guest label at the time, and our parents like, if you go with him, you can go. And we went to LA for the first time, and it felt like we had made it. We were going where it all started, punk rock. You know
what we haven't mentioned yet is skate culture. You talked about the snowboarding video, but this type of music has a really strong connection to skating. Why is that? Do you know?
I don't know. And then later on, it kind of became more hip hop in the skate community. But like skateboarding at the time, it was like counterculture. It was like you're kind of like, you're dressed a little more. You got the torn up jeans. You got your skateboard. You're disrupting the piece. You're grinding on public property. You're doing stuff. And
you're a punk.
Yeah, and I kind of identify with that. And I always felt that when you watch skate movies and snowboard movies, that music just really went well with the footage. You know what I mean? It feels like kickflip, right? It's like
it was the same energy.
Yeah. So and then when Tony Hawk Pro Skater game came out, it was all these bands. You know what I mean? And it's just part of the style to me.
Yeah, it was so cool to see how the two cultures kind of merge. And I think that, it made a huge difference. Like if you look at the Vans Warped Tour, when it first started, it wasn't just bands. Like they brought like skate ramps and they brought like all these pro skaters with them. And there was an energy. It was a scene, It really felt like it was a whole world, like a whole ecosystem that was really fun to be a part of.
You guys played at Warped Tour countless times, huh?
Yep. We hold a record second place. Less than Jake has more performances than we have, but we're in second place for the most Warped Tours that we've attended.
What came first, Warped Tour or this music? Did they grow up together?
I think the music came first, or right around the same time, because the first Vans Warped Tour was, 95, 94?
Yeah, I want to say it was like...
It's been 30 years, and it was, so 95.
Yeah.
95.
I think the music existed, but Warped Tour took it
Yeah.
and brought it to a whole different level. You know, it definitely brought it out of like this being this kind of like hidden thing. It just became like accessible because
Yeah.
it went everywhere. Being on Warped Tour was kind of like, it was important because it was kind of reaffirming, no, yes, we do have a little bit of radio success. Yes, we were on TRL, but this is still our world. This is still where we belong. This is still what the scene that we love, you know? So that's why we did it so much, I think.
As we were working on this episode and having these conversations, one cultural institution kept coming up over and over again, the Vans Warped Tour. So before we go any further, let's go into the studio for a short essay on the history of the Warped Tour and why it was so important in this movement. In the early 1990s, a man named Kevin Lyman was working as a stage manager for a new traveling music festival called Lollapalooza. At that time, Lolla wasn't exactly the mass-appealing popular music fest that it is today. Its lineup was across the board pretty alternative. Headliners in the first year, 1991, included Jane's Addiction, Ice-T, and Butthole Surfers. Lyman felt mostly at home in this scene, but his real interest was in third wave ska and punk, particularly the new skate punk culture he saw emerging in his home state of California. Skate punk was essentially hardcore punk tied to California's skateboarding world, pioneered by bands like Suicidal Tendencies, JFA, and The Faction in the 1980s. By the early 90s, it evolved into something more melodic, with bands like NOFX and The Descendants feeding the rise of a newer sound, pop punk. Lyman noticed a gap in the festival landscape. These scenes were thriving, but no one had yet built large-scale lineups around them. He believed that if he did, it would draw thousands of passionate teenagers. So, in 1995, the year after Green Day's album Dookie catapulted pop punk to the mainstream, he launched the Warped Tour, alongside Warp magazine creator Ray Woodbury. The way Lyman organized the festival was chaotic but incredibly efficient. Each stop had a slightly different setup, but typically featured multiple outdoor stages, sometimes up to 10. Stages were paired so that adjacent ones would alternate 30-minute sets. And audiences didn't know who was playing when until they got to the venue and saw set times posted on a giant inflatable board. This encouraged fans to show up early and explore beyond just the headliners. The first Warped Tour kicked off on June 21st, 1995, in Boise, Idaho. There was no official headliner, but Sublime is often remembered as a standout act. Despite strong crowd energy and a buzzy debut, the inaugural tour, which featured 26 dates, didn't turn a profit. To keep going and to get out of the red, Lyman needed a sponsor. And after a deal with Calvin Klein fell through, a more culturally aligned brand stepped in to keep the tour alive: Vans. With Vans' backing, Warp launched new programs to reinforce its punk credibility. A battle of the bands for unsigned acts, an amateur skating contest where winners could earn Vans sponsorship, and the barbecue band tradition, where one emerging band earned a set time in exchange for cooking dinner for the entire crew. Lyman, who once said he grew up with that F corporate America mentality, continued bringing on new sponsors, like Monster Energy and PlayStation. The Warped Tour also launched artist careers. It was crucial to Blink-182, who played to huge audiences in the 1996 festival, right as they were about to release their breakthrough album, Dude Ranch. Many fans discover them at Warped Tour and not on MTV. Artists like Katy Perry, Black Eyed Peas, G-Eazy, BB Rexa, and others have also credited Warped with giving them a boost. However, by the 2010s, as Warped's core audience aged up and newer teens embraced different sounds, tensions rose. For instance, when 303 joined the Warped Tour in the late 2000s, it sparked backlash from older fans who felt that electropop had no place on a punk lineup. But Lyman sided with the new kids and was even backed by some of the musicians from his original lineups. In a 2015 interview, Bad Religion co-founder Jay Bentley said, "Maybe our audience doesn't want to stand in a parking lot. The people who are willing to stand in a parking lot are 14 and 15-year-olds, and they want to see a different kind of band." The Warped Tour, other than the 30th anniversary mini tour this year, finally shut down in 2019 after 3 decades of bridging generations and continents of punk and punk-adjacent fans. And through all the contradictions, criticisms, and chaotic moments, its role in popularizing pop punk, skateboarding, and youth-driven DIY culture is undeniable. I want to ask you guys about Warped Tour. Did you guys go to Warped Tour before you played it? Was that like a formative thing in your...
You snuck in. Oh, we all snuck in, right?
We came up going, I think our drummer Ryan's cousin took us to our first Warped Tour. We were probably in like 10th grade. And like I snuck backstage. I was just trying to meet all the bands. Like they were all my heroes.
You had a picture with Simple Plan?
I sure did. Yeah. And it was like, it was probably then that I decided like, man, I want to do this. I want to be a part of this world.
We gave Kevin Lyman our demo too. Do you remember that?
Yeah.
Kevin Lyman, who created Warped Tour, started it. The man
Shout out
behind
Kevin.
the curtain.
It probably went immediately in the trash, but then there was enough familiarity the next year when I was like, hey, Kevin, I met you last year. He was like, oh, you guys.
Came back around.
Yeah.
I just thought it was so cool hearing All Time Low tell the story about sneaking backstage at Warped Tour to hand their demo to Kevin Lyman. Like, that's a firsthand experience of why Warped Tour was so important in pop punk music. For song number 6 on the playlist, we're finally going to get to my personal favorite pop punk band. You might know who I'm talking about already when I say the most important pop punk band of all time. This song is from 1997. Let's go back to Simple Plan and see what they have to say about these guys?
Oh, well. Yes. Apple Shampoo, like when I do.
Let's see.
Apple Shampoo.
Oh, sorry, I didn't mean to ruin the surprise.
Get a little taste.
Dude Wrench.
Yeah.
Yeah, right before the big Enema of the State 1999 record. This was, this was. I'm so glad you picked that song. It's my favorite off the of that album, Dude Ranch. I think it's amazing.
I love that song.
Supposedly about dancehall crasher singer that they used to date. I'm not sure if that's confirmed or not, but that's what I read. So but yeah, really cool. Blink is a huge part of Simple Plan's story. I mean, with our first band Reset, it's all connected with that origin story. But we played a lot of shows with
back when they were
called
promoting.
Blink.
Yeah,
well, I mean, even before that
on
like Cheshire Cat. Yeah, they were called Blink. There was no 182 yet. They hadn't been like sued by some band in Ireland, so they were still just like a small. But I'm talking like underground band. Like they would come and we would play this thing called Snow Jam back in Canada. And it was maybe like they played the Underworld, like a venue in front of 200 people, 150 people. I mean, we have footage of them. Like it's literally like the most punk rock venue you could ever play. And we met them on during those shows, and we became somewhat friends. And years later, that led to Mark Hoppus singing on that Do Anything, and really giving up that incredible stamp of approval of the biggest band in the entire world. But it all comes from that connection from the punk rock scene, and him also kind of having the ethos of like, hey, in punk rock, that's what you do. You if you have some shine on your band, you help the bands that are like that are in the same scene. And he did that for us, and it was so generous and amazing. And here we are.
It's hard to overstate just how important Blink-182 is in pop punk history. I even heard somewhere that All Time Low got their start doing Blink-182 covers. So, of course, I had to ask them about it. I want to talk about Blink-182
Let's
because
talk about Blink.
we've been sort of putting together this story about... What's that?
It's the Blink
Oh,
Bunny.
you got the ink. Blink
Okay.
ink.
I got the ink. I got the Blink ink.
Blink ink.
So we're working on this story about the pop punk and the origins of pop punk.
Yeah.
And if you made a Mount Rushmore, they're definitely 100% squarely on there, right?
I mean, it's hard to say that all three members wouldn't be on there. I don't know how many faces you're allowed to have on a Mount Rushmore of pop
Technically
punk.
four.
But it's like they might eat up most of it. I mean, at least for us, at least in our world. But I mean, yeah, they're such a huge piece of that puzzle. You can say that bands came before or bands came after that defined pop punk, but I think like when you really parse it down to like who of all those bands really ran away with it, I think it comes down to Green Day and Blink. And I think, it just, we wouldn't have the pop punk that we have today. And there would not be a lot of the bands that we have today, I think, without those bands.
Sometimes I wonder if Blink didn't exist, if we would even be here on this earth.
We probably wouldn't be a band, to be fair.
That's what I also mean that as well.
Is that how you got started playing Blink-182 songs? Is that just a rumor?
No, it's pretty true. Like when we first got together, we had no intentions of like forming a band formally. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like we just got together and played guitar in our rooms. And so
Can I throw some shade at you, Al?
please, I would love
So
that. I love street abuse.
Me and Alex met in 8th grade, and our music, the music we listened to was different, I'd say. Alex was into Bob Marley a little bit, like a little Bob Marley, a little Sublime.
Yeah.
A little Bob Marley, a little Sublime, which is great. I was more into like Blink, Green Day.
You were a big pop punk kid. I was like, I listened to a lot of what my parents listened to. Like I liked Pink Floyd.
Yeah.
Shout out. The Beatles. Sublime was a huge one.
Sublime played Warped Tour as well. Like there's definitely a connection
There
between...
was crossover for sure.
I guess it's like Southern California is like where a lot of this stuff
It was formative.
arises from, and
For
that
sure.
ska music, like it's totally connected to pop punk
Big
and
time.
emo, and
Big
like
time.
different but interconnected.
I mean,
100%.
Same world.
Like No Doubt.
No
that
Doubt.
world,
No Doubt really crosses them over.
It's the perfect intersection, I would say.
Okay, so who comes before Blink-182?
I mean, it was the OffSpring, NOFX, and Green Day for me.
And a lot of like Lagwagon, No Use for Name, and kind of like the SoCal, like kind of pop punk stuff. That was a little. I think that probably influenced Blink as well.
Yeah.
Offspring was a big one.
Throwing it back to the Warped Tour conversation, it was a lot of those Warped Tour compilations from back then. Like whatever was on the comp every year was kind of something I would always look into more. So shout out to the Warped Tour comps for getting me into a lot of bands.
At the turn of millennium, pop punk was one of the biggest genres on the planet, headlined by bands like Blink-182 and Green Day. To some, this was a surprise, but I was curious for people on the inside, like Chuck and Pierre, if they thought it was surprising as well. Did you have any sense of that this was going to happen in the late 90s, early 2000s, that this music would become like the biggest genre in the world, or at least in the United States? Like, it feels like in that period, this music took over and went to another level. And punk rock, historically, is kind of like underground behind the scenes. I mean, you're talking about hardcore.
Which was the whole
Hardcore is like
tension, right?
hidden, but then all of a sudden,
you're almost not supposed to want success because punk is supposed to stay small, and that's the whole thing.
Especially at that time,
But I think
it was like that.
when Green Day with Dookie is what blew the whole lid off that thing. You know what I mean? Like, they became superstars, and I know they got a lot of shit for it, and it was difficult for them. You can see it in a lot of articles and books about it. But like, I think once we saw that, and we were in high school at that time, like 94, right?
Yeah, we were.
Like, I think I at least felt like this is never going away, because Green Day it's like this poppy, it's like good catchy melodies, but with a little more energy and guitars and drums. How could that ever go out of style?
Yeah.
I thought it was going to go
But
away.
it's so interesting because there was two eras, though. I mean, if you look at 94, was like, okay, like Offspring and Green Day were definitely on top, and then you had NOFX, you had Bad Religion, and it was kind of bubbling. And then, like, for a while, like,
saw boy bands after that.
It kind of like went away for a minute. And it's like, oh, is that it? And then, but there was something about the music, the honesty of the lyrics, just the energy, and there's something timeless about this sound. And I remember when I heard the Blink record, I was like, okay, then maybe there's going to be this second wave and it's going to come back. And sure enough, it was massive. But it's interesting. There was this kind of interlude between those two moments, right?
Yeah.
And then the early 2000s, 99, 2000, scene just exploded. And then I think that, I'm not going to say it was bigger because Offspring and Green Day sold 10, 15 million records each, and it was ridiculous. But there was more bands.
I think one of the differences is that in the early 2000s, when you saw like Blink come out and all these bands, they were on pop radio. It was no longer just on rock radio. Whereas like Green Day, they were on pop radio, but not as much, I think, and especially not Offspring, where like then it was like pop radio was playing, Green Day, Simple Plan, Good Charlotte, Blink-182, Avril Lavigne. It became a pop phenomenon. Sorry.
And at the same time, MTV probably became even more mainstream.
True.
And drove the
that's very,
conversation. You mentioned the boy bands thing.
Yep.
Blink-182 did, I don't remember, is it All the Small Things?
yeah,
One
All
of the
the Small
music
Things.
videos where they do the spoof of the boy
Which
bands.
was genius.
All the small things, true care, truth brings. I'll take one lift, you're right, best trip.
Well, it was so genius because, for the people that didn't like, the boy bands, it was like, oh, they're making fun of them. It's amazing. And for the people that maybe like them, there's like, oh, they kind of like, oh, here's a new boy band. Like, so Marco Ciega, who directed that video, was genius. And I was so surprised to read, and Mark Hoppus from Blink put out a memoir recently, and he said like he didn't get the concept. They didn't think it was a good idea. All the small things, and I was
so
like,
good, man.
And sure enough, he's like, we're gonna do it, but I don't know, it's not funny. And then it was the biggest thing ever. And he admits he was wrong on that one, but it was kind of like so. I just thought it was so clever how they did it.
So when I was a teenager, I would come home after school every day and I would watch music videos on MTV. Not only after school, but I feel like I would wake up in the morning and before I went to school, I would watch music videos. I was obsessed with watching music videos on MTV. And one of the videos I remember coming on the most was Blink-182's All the Small Things. Let's go back to the studio for a short essay on the All the Small Things music video and how it almost didn't happen. Blink-182 is probably the one band that, even if you know absolutely nothing about pop punk, comes to mind when someone mentions the genre. And All the Small Things is the one Blink-182 song that, even if you don't know the band, you've heard it somewhere, somehow. Somewhat surprisingly, All the Small Things is the only Blink-182 song that ever charted in the Billboard Top 40. And its massive success was due in large part to the music video I was just talking about with Chuck and Pierre. The video, directed by Marco Ciega and shot at Van Nuys Airport, parodied some of the biggest pop stars of the era: Backstreet Boys, Britney Spears, NSYNC, Christina Aguilera, and others. When Ciega pitched the concept, the band was skeptical. There's a great segment on this in Mark Hoppus's book about the music video. Everyone thought this was a great idea, but I didn't get it. I wasn't familiar with the videos we were parodying, and I figured our fans wouldn't be either. Everyone kept assuring me, it's going to be huge. People are going to love it. But I kept saying, no, it's not. Sorry, but I just don't see it. I think Tom understood it more than I did. Tom is the other lead singer of the band. Or at least he was confident we could make anything funny. We could show up and be ourselves until we had a video that we liked. So we learned all the dance moves and squeezed into the most ridiculous outfits. We did our best impression of a cute boy band, but we wore fake teeth and bad wigs. I twirled around in my underwear in an airplane hangar for what felt like hours. Anything for good footage. And then a little bit later on, he says, we wrapped the shoot after 3 days, and Marco showed us the finished product. I still didn't get it. Everyone kept assuring me it was going to be huge, and I kept saying, no, I'm going on record as guaranteeing this video will flop. I was wrong. Really, really wrong. All the Small Things immediately blew past What's My Age Again, their previous music video, and rocketed up the radio charts and MTV. It crushed alternative radio and crossed over into the pop world. TRL played it for almost 2 years. It took on a life of its own in pop culture, and to this day, it remains our biggest hit. Even more than 20 years later, it manages to find new life. The Colorado Avalanche used it as their fight song on the way to winning the 2022 Stanley Cup. It was also in Alvin and the Chipmunks, The Squeakquel. Thank you, Mark Hoppus. This book, by the way, if you're interested in pop punk, highly, highly recommend. Okay. When it premiered, the music video exploded and brought Blink a huge new wave of fans almost instantly. We could talk forever about how impactful MTV was at the turn of the century, and we will in future episodes of this show. But for now, what you should know is that Blink was featured on Making the Video and Total Request Live. TRL was a teen pop institution, and for a band like Blink to be in rotation next to Britney Spears and NSYNC said a lot about where pop punk was headed. The show, aimed squarely at teenagers, played the video constantly and helped elevate Blink into true mainstream territory. The story of this song, and of Blink like Warped Tour and pop punk in general, is rich with irony. By making fun of boy bands, Blink-182 accidentally launched themselves into the exact kind of fame they were mocking. And today, they might even belong on the Mount Rushmore of boy bands. When you think of that kind of group, teen idols, matching outfits, songs about heartbreak, you might picture the pop punk and emo heartthrobs of the mid-2000s just as quickly as the original boy band wave. In 2003, our friend Kel Fasane wrote in the New York Times that in the years following All the Small Things, punk rock became the new teen pop. Reviewing one of Blink's shows at Irving Plaza, he added, the average punk group might be horrified to find itself marketed as a tattooed and pierced boy band, but the members of Blink-182 seem to view mainstream success as a joke and maybe a fluke. Director Marco Siega later reflected, we were making fun of boy bands, but it kind of became what we were making fun of. And maybe no one embodied that shift more than drummer Travis Barker, who got his own MTV reality show, Meet the Barkers, in the 2000s, and later married into the Kardashian family, highlighting Blink's full transformation from Warped Tour underdogs to pop culture fixtures. I feel like this is a good transition from the MTV era to the TikTok era, and how young people today are scrolling and seeing these musical trends pop off. And you guys had a huge moment with
Still
one of those
going.
things. Yeah, it
never ends.
Forever.
It's the longest. I think it's one of the longest going TikTok trends ever. It's still. Selena Gomez just did one like last week.
Yeah, it
with
has
I'm Just a
become
Kid
part
challenge.
of like the whole celebrity playbook. Like when you launch a reboot,
You do an
or,
I'm Just a Kid
or
challenge.
When you
When
have
did
like
it start?
2020, I want to say, like
Yeah,
pandemic.
during
Early, like-
pandemic.
Yeah,
Early pandemic.
early
Yeah.
TikTok era.
Yes.
Yeah.
And the
Yeah.
song's from 2002?
Yeah.
Correct. Yes.
Yeah. So it's an
So-
18-year-old song
that came out in the U.S. and did nothing.
Yeah, it wasn't even a big song in the U.S.
Biggest tank. It did well around the world, but in the U.S. specifically, it was a failure. And then fast forward 20 years later, something
We just need a TikTok for it to
magical
be,
happened.
Yeah.
It's so
And went
funny.
platinum.
If I see like a picture of myself, like a childhood picture, the song like starts playing in my head.
And I'm spending every day on your own.
on.
And it's so crazy because when we play festivals and we play shows, even our headline shows, like people sing all the lyrics, but when it gets to that line, like right, it just gets louder.
Yeah,
You're like, whoa, it's like overwhelming how
TikTok,
everybody like right before that chorus, because that's where the trend starts. And it's like, it's only like a 20-second thing. And I think that trend resonated because yes, it's kind of like, oh, it's a TikTok trend, but there's something deeper going on. It's like you're recreating these photos from your childhood, from and you see life passing you by. You see like years go by. You see friends maybe are not there anymore. Parents getting older, and it's like, or kids they were this small, now they're 15 years old. You know what I mean? So there's something profoundly human in that trend that I think resonated with people, especially during the pandemic.
Every day on your own, and here it goes. I'm just a kid.
That song is also a really good example, the lyrics and the message behind it, of like this theme of this genre. Angst, not necessarily fitting in, not like full emo. There's other types of bands that are more leaning in that direction.
Came
but
afterwards,
like the childhood teenage angst theme, like where does that come from?
And the Peter Pan syndrome too, like the kid, right?
Yeah.
Being young,
I don't
always
wanna
want to
grow
stay
up.
young. Yeah.
Like why did you write songs about that theme?
I think we were
and many other bands.
Yeah, I think it was a time when, if you back up a little bit and go in the 90s, it wasn't as common or accepted to talk about your emotions, to talk about, hey, I feel like I've got anxiety, I've got depression. And we're in that generation of bands that started talking about it. And that's why there was so much kind of like, even though there was a lot of success, there was a lot of backlash from it, because like, oh, you guys are just a bunch of whiners, you know what I mean? But now it's so cool to see, because that transition turned into a whole, I mean, I guess society kind of followed along, but like now it's completely normal to talk about your mental health and your sanity, your, all that kind of stuff. So I think it was at the right time when kids at home were feeling like, I feel like nobody understands me, that nobody sees me. And then when all these bands started talking about like those situations, people felt it hit them so hard
seen.
Because they felt like they're talking about me and now I'm not alone anymore. And that is the biggest lifeline you can ever have when you have something going on mentally. When you feel like someone else can understand you, it just relieves you from so much of that pressure. And that's what that music did for people. And I'm just so grateful that we were part of that shift.
Yeah, and you could tell how much it was needed, because even now, 20 years later, people come up to us and they say like, these songs were so important. And if it wasn't for these songs, I wouldn't be here. And they still want to hear them today. And they want to come to the show and they want to sort of relive. And they tell us how like cathartic it is to hear them all these years later. And so, yeah, it's special it's the greatest gift as a songwriter when you're able to write a song that connects like that.
One of the coolest things about making this show is one day I can be talking to one band, and the next day I can play a song by that band for another band and get their reaction to it. Here's Good Charlotte on Simple Plan.
I woke up, it was 7. I waited till
Simple Plan.
Just barely.
Yeah.
You guys and
We
Simple
love
Plan
those guys.
had a rise like around the same time, right? I remember like watching MTV
I'll
all
tell you,
the time.
the first time we met Simple Plan was on our tour bus. We were with MXPX, and they had just signed their record deal with Atlantic. Remember? And they brought their demo, their CD, and then they came out to the show. Somehow we got connected, and they were making their record or something. And they came on the bus
In Montreal.
and then we went out for the night.
They
And,
took us
like,
out.
We drove around with them and where they're from, and we like hung out all night, and then we became friends, and we were friends through our entire careers.
Love them.
Yeah.
They're it's interesting because you say like, oh, they're such nice guys. But they also have a kind confidence. You know what I mean? Like they're not like, this is the thing like that I love about Pierre, right? I think when I was younger, I always felt like I had to be like, maybe I had to fight back.
Yeah.
Pierre has always just been like the nice guy,
Super
but also
cool,
confident.
but serious guy.
Yeah, but serious.
Yeah, they're great guys. Yeah.
They were telling me about when they did their first demo and they were trying to get signed. They somehow got connected with Mark Hoppus, and they were like giving him the tape, like, you gotta like help us. And it worked out, and they like got him to record a song with them.
Yeah.
Just shows you there's a real community, I feel like, that was born out of that genre of music, and maybe Warped Tour.
Well,
and
real ones.
and the fans.
Real ones, like real bands and people who struggled to get noticed or seen or whatever. Blink-182 was no different. You always spot another musician
It's hard
or band that's
to make
trying to
it.
make it, and you always will like give them a second or give them a minute or listen to their music or try to help if you can. I always know if anybody came up and struggled to get somewhere, I can always tell the real ones because they do, like, they take the time.
For song number 8, we're going to talk about a band that got started in 2003. This song in particular came out in 2005 when the band really exploded.
Fall Out Boy.
We're gonna need to go
Tiebreaker?
to the. We might need to hit the
100%
playback. Alex might have beat me by like the.
Can we run it back in slow motion? Is that a thing you guys
We're gonna
can
have
do?
to go. We're checking the tape right now. What about Fall Out Boy?
Great band, great dudes. Kind of like staples in the world that we came up in as well. They were sort of one generation above us as far as like bands that we looked up to when we were just getting out of high school and chasing this dream. And they were sort of like the prime example of like what we wanted to set ourselves to do, you know? And they've been so consistent. I really have a lot of respect for the Fall Out Boy dudes because they've just been consistent in what they've done and done it at a high level. And that's hard to do over a long period of time.
They were the first they were the first massive band to take us on tour.
Yeah.
So I think they kind of, right when our album Nothing Personal was coming out, we just had one song out, Weightless, from the record, and they took us on the road, and it kind of helped launch that record
Formative.
for us. So like we were very appreciative of them for sure.
Let's go back to Good Charlotte one more time, a song from 2007 from a band that formed in Tennessee. You probably know these guys.
I'm in the business of misery. Let's take it from the top. She's got a body like an hourglass, it's ticking like a clock.
Paramore.
It's a matter of time.
I mean, legendary band also. who's
Legendary, man.
Helped expand even further the
Haley's a star,
fan base.
man.
I have a daughter and she's just getting, playing her stuff and whatever.
Yeah.
Loves Paramore.
How old is your daughter?
5.5.
Did you Taylor Swift fan? Is she a Taylor?
Yes.
Did you go to the Eras?
I didn't. She was
Tour?
a little young.
Mine did.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. My daughter is 17, almost 18.
There you go. Right in the zone.
So she went to Taylor Swift. That shit was expensive, bro.
You know what? The reason I bring up Taylor Swift though is the influence, your guys' influence on her music. Like, you know what I mean? Like Paramore, like a lot of that type of music, emo, pop punk music, inspired her and what she's gone on to do today. And now she's playing the biggest
At the
arenas
core,
in the world.
At the core, Taylor is a songwriter.
Yeah.
And all of our music, if you sit down with an acoustic guitar, most of it starts there, but it's the same thing. It's just sitting down with an acoustic guitar and writing a little song that you like. And I feel like it's all similar, you know?
Yeah. Her and Olivia Rodrigo, really.
Yeah, badasses.
Just badasses. You always know when you meet a kid and then you know they're gonna grow up to be a boss. You know? You just know. You see, you meet someone will go, hey, this new artist is, and they're like 17,
Taylor's
18,
always been a boss,
and
man.
you go, that kid's gonna be a boss.
Yeah.
And I mean, she's the boss.
So that last song was from 2007, a time in which the peak of pop punk was finally on the decline. At the same time that another mainstay of American culture was also on the decline. Let's go back to the studio one more time for a short essay on the parallels between pop punk and the American shopping mall. While creating this episode, the team and I started talking, kind of half-jokingly, about whether pop punk's decline might have had something to do with the fall of the shopping mall. Think about it. In the early 2000s, malls were the place where teens hung out. And that was also when pop punk was at its peak. Imagine it's 2005 and you walk into a Hot Topic or a Zoomies. It probably smells like Axe body spray, and it definitely sounds like the Warped Tour. So we dug into this, and there might actually be something there. First, a little history. The first enclosed mall in the U.S. opened in 1956, Southdale Center, Edina, Minnesota. This was post-World War II America. Car ownership was booming, interstate highways were expanding, and suburbs were growing fast. As people moved out of cities, they left behind walkable downtowns. The mall was designed to replace them, a car-friendly version of Main Street. Ironically, the architect behind it, Victor Gruen, was a socialist from Austria who once described American suburbs as avenues of horror. His original vision included stores, but also apartments, offices, and public art. A mixed-use community hub. As malls spread across the country, that part got stripped away. Gruen would later disclaim paternity of his creation, saying in 1978 that modern malls had bastardized his idea. But by the 1980s, malls had become a massive force in American life, not just commercially, but socially. With urban sprawl and zoning laws killing off traditional public spaces, malls became de facto third places. Somewhere you could go and just be. Not just in stores, but in food courts, arcades, and movie theaters. And if anyone truly claimed the mall as their own, it was teenagers. In her 1997 master's thesis, Hanging Out at the Mall, sociologist Jennifer Smith McGuire described malls as key spaces of identity formation. Shut out of most other hangout spots, she says, teens flock to the malls to loiter, socialize, people watch, and try on different versions of themselves. And retailers took note. Stores like PacSun, Hot Topic, Spencer's, and Zumiez were practically built for teens figuring themselves out. They sold band merch, skate gear, edgy accessories, and records that confused, if not outright terrified, parents. Of course, teens weren't exactly known for mild-mannered behavior, and they don't usually have a ton of disposable income. So some malls eventually decided they'd be better off without them, at least during certain hours. You might remember the signs. No unaccompanied minors after 5 p.m. But when has a sign ever stopped a teenager from doing what they want? And really, what's more punk than getting banned from the mall and showing up anyway? Through the 80s, 90s, and early 2000s, the link between teens and malls was undeniable. You saw it in pop culture. Fast Times at Ridgemont High, Clueless, Mallrats, and then malls started dying. The 2008 recession hit hard, retail shifted online, and the mall as a cultural institution began to collapse. And the mall's social function? That's largely been replaced by the internet too. Instead of gathering in a food court, teens can now find community on Twitch streams, TikTok, and even just in the group chat. Now, videos of empty malls described as liminal spaces rack up millions of views on TikTok. Pop punk followed a similar arc. By the mid-2010s, it was falling off the radio. Warped Tour attendance was declining. The genre was no longer at the center of youth culture. So, did pop punk die with the mall? Not exactly. Maybe the disappearance of youth-centered infrastructure had something to do with it, but mostly, the punks just grew up and the new kids moved on to different sounds. So maybe malls weren't what created pop punk, but they were a mirror, a reflection of what teens cared about, how they dressed, what they listened to. And now, teens just don't go to the mall much anymore. The few malls that still exist don't cater to them, and in the stores that do, you're a lot more likely to hear Travis Scott or Sabrina Carpenter than Blink-182 or Green Day. But you can still buy their t-shirts. Towards the end of the conversation with Simple Plan, I wanted to make sure we brought up one more artist who I forgot to add to the playlist. We didn't talk about Avril either, who probably also inspired, who you guys recently released a song with, fellow Canadian.
Yeah.
Another legend. There's so much good stuff
Yeah,
here.
we have such a parallel career. We came out around the same time and still, we toured together back then, and we just toured together now this summer and last summer, and people loved it because what a package. I mean, you go see a show and you got Simple Plan, you got Avril, we had We the Kings. Like you're going to be singing every single song the entire night, So it was fantastic.
Luckily, we were able to go back into the archives and find another clip where we did talk about Avril Lavigne with another artist who was hugely inspired by her music. Okay, before we start with the music, can you introduce yourself?
Hey, I'm Olivia Rodrigo.
Nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you too. Thanks for having me.
Welcome to Trackstar.
It sounds like the Hannah Montana, but it's not. Oh, Avril, duh.
Avril Lavigne.
Avril.
You listen a lot of Avril Lavigne?
Yeah, I love Avril.
Actually,
she was great.
She had the song of the week that you were born.
Yes, that is so funny that you say that. I think it's I'm With You or something. Because my mom said that when she was giving birth to me in the hospital, that music video was playing on the TV,
No
which
way.
I think is funny.
That's like a sign. Like you should get into music.
it's a serendipitous moment.
To wrap up the episode, one more time, back to Simple Plan to make sure we didn't miss any important artists in our pop punk playlist. I want to go to the present.
Okay.
There's an artist that's huge right now that some of the influence is in her music, Olivia Rodrigo.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah,
You
yeah.
guys-
I'm all about it. I think it sounds great. My daughters are super into it. But to me, I found inspiring when I heard her come out with her first record. There was something about what she was doing that kind of reminded me, like, we can do stuff. Like, she was almost doing more pop punky than we were doing.
Yeah.
We almost don't even allow ourselves to do that simple. You know what I mean? In a good way. But I felt like that's really cool. And I have to say, I think for the next few songs, I'll be a little influenced by Olivia Rodrigo.
Yeah, it's like it goes full circle. It's so cool to see a whole new generation of people being inspired by the pop punk scene and like, what, all these bands that we talked about today created, to see it like being sort of reinvented by people that are like 17, 18, 19, 20 years old. It's so cool. It shows that the music lives on, that there's a timelessness to it, and they put their own spin on it. And then like just like that, it does inspire, like an older band. It's like, oh shit, that's a cool way to do it, And I just think it's remarkable. And I think what it's also doing is like her fans maybe might be curious and they're like, oh, okay, like she's influenced by these bands, and now with streaming platform, all you have to do, there's no barrier. You can just go and you can go back down history lane like we did today and like discover all these awesome bands, and then they become fans. They come to our shows, and it's a full circle.
Her producer Dan Nigro,
love him.
Played in an emo band.
Yeah.
Probably played at Warped Tour himself
I'm
a few
sure.
times.
Yeah.
And now he's helping.
It's amazing.
Usher that in.
I love him. I think he's a great producer, a great writer.
What I love about you guys and what I love about pop punk in general is that there's an effort to make a song that just sounds great, that's catchy, that people are going to love. And I think that's just an important part of music culture.
Absolutely.
And that's what I love about it. I'm sure you guys think about that when you're recording. Like, are people going to rock out to this? Are people going to love this? Are they going to sing the hook?
I find even now more than ever, I want to make sure that if you put a song on, that once it's done, you remember a little part of it. It doesn't have to be the whole thing, but like a little part of it where you're like, I want to hear that again right away.
Yeah.
Where if you put a song on and it happens a lot, you just listen to it and it's great, it's melodic, but it's not catching you. It's like, it's not, and I just love that about the Ramones, simplicity, you know, and it's, people sometimes shy away from simplicity, but like, look at like Tom Petty stuff, and the Ramones and just simple pop punk like Green Day, and that stuff is like, it's unbeatable.
And it's not simple to write.
No, it's hard.
That's the thing.
It's harder. It's harder. It's easy to write a song that's not memorable.
Yeah. Songs that you don't even have to be listening to it. You're just walking down the street and it just comes in your head. You can hear the whole thing.
And that's kind of the signature of what we try to do. And it's as a band, like 25 years in, it's really cool to keep trying to write your best song you ever wrote. That's the challenge. That's what keeps it interesting. It keeps it fun. Like, hey, can we top everything we've ever done? And, you're always 3 minutes away from doing that, which is pretty cool.
Before we go, any other bands that we missed that are important for this conversation that you guys like just love?
I think you hit them all. I don't know.
For me, Bad Religion. Yeah. They were really formative. They were really important. They were awesome. They and I think they had a huge influence on the whole scene. So I heard like American Jesus when I was 14 or 15 years old. And I remember sitting at night. There was a radio show in Montreal, like an underground radio show, and their record was just coming out, and they played that song. And I remember I was falling asleep, and I just stood up, and I'm like, oh my God, what is this? I wrote it down. There was no internet. There was no Instagram back then. I asked my mom, could you please get this at the record store tomorrow? It's coming out. And it was coming out on Wednesdays back then or Tuesdays. And she got it, and that changed my life, and it changed our lives because we became such big fans, and it shaped the DNA of who we are musically.
Thanks for taking the time and talking to us. Thanks for standing out here in the sun.
Oh, it's a pleasure. Yeah,
it got a little
hotter and hotter as we went on. Yeah.
As the song started getting harder.
Yeah.
That was what it was.
Started sweating. Like, do I know this song? It was amazing.
Thank you. Awesome.
This is a really fun episode to make. I think it's interesting whenever we do make pop punk episodes of Trackstar and ask people about that music. The videos do really well. We don't do it that often, but I think when we do, the reason they take off is because there's this like huge amount of nostalgia attached to this music. Takes you back. It transports you to maybe a simpler time. If you like the Trackstar podcast, please share with your friends, share with your parents, share with your aunts and uncles, your cousins, your kids. Subscribe. If you are interested in buying some Trackstar merch, we have great hats and sweatshirts available on publicopinion.nyc. That's our website. As always, I love you, and we'll see you next week. Peace. Trackstar is a presentation of Public Opinion created by me, Jack Coyne, Kieran Coyne, and Henry Kornaros. Written and produced by Noah John. Edited and produced by Haley Sobel. Theme and original composition by Kieran Coyne. Mixing by Christian Stropko. Our agent is Joanna Orland at UTA. Thanks for listening. See you next Wednesday.